And of course, it's to do with the turbulence at KQ. Like I mentioned, the CS for Labour, CS Kandie, is set to give a press conference and, of course, also have a board meeting, of course, over the turbulence at Kenya Airways. Of course, there's that strike noticed by pilots, the Kenya Airways staff. The strike, of course, by pilot looms. Now, the CS, CS Kandie, will hold talks among the various parties to seek an amicable agreement on the issues that gave rise to the KQ strike notice. The separate meetings involving conciliation committee members, staff union representatives, KQ management, as well as KOTU and Federation of Kenya Employers will take place at the ministry boardroom. And we have our reporter there, Ashley Mazuri, who's going to keep us updated. For now, though, I want us to have a conversation here in studio with Paul Wafula, who is a standard reporter, and he has been following up on the events leading up to this mess for a long time now. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, now we've had so much, about this turbulence at KQ. Of course, there's so many issues that are coming up, but one of it, of course, is the management change that is currently ongoing. We've had names like Michael Joseph being thrown around. So talk to us about what is really happening in the boardrooms at KQ.
Kenya Airways is an interesting story, and if you looked at it currently, you may not really appreciate what the airline is going through.
Right.
Actually, the events of the airline starting to come out in terms of having a problem occurred 2 years ago when they reported what is called a negative equity. This is whereby you find that a company says that, look, we are not insolvent or we are not in problems right now,
right.
but in a year or so we'll be having problems. This is that, you have your assets and then you have your liability, the things that you owe to pay people, your debts, and so on and so forth. So they have, if they sold everything at Kenya Airways, they are not able to pay off all their debts and everything. Now, when a company finds itself in that kind of a position, then those are red signs ahead. So after that, the airline started coming out of that, trying to do a few things. Of course, they had reported already 26 billion loss at that time. And then now they started selling land in Embakasi. They have sold a number of aircraft. They have sold even a parking slot in London, just to try and get some money to be able to support the airline. Then they have come out to borrow. They have borrowed about 20 billion Kenya shillings in the last 6 months or so. And they have actually received the money. But this is still just a drop in the ocean. And then now you see, when that happened again, they reported another 26 billion loss. So things were not changing. Now they are looking at 56 billion in terms of losses.
Right.
At this point now, pilots started becoming a problem in that they're saying, look, the management at the airline must change. And rightly so, if you look at the decision that the airline has been making, at some point you wonder if really they are really running the airline for the good of the airline or they're running it for personal interest. It's not an interesting time right now to be actually the CEO of Kenya Airways because of the pressure that we are looking at and so on and so forth. But the bottom line, I think, it's how can really government move in and solve the situation. Remember, the two major shareholders of Kenya Airways are KLM, that's the Royal Dutch Airline, and then you have the government of Kenya. But KLM has an upper hand because they are kind of the bigger shareholders and they have been left to do everything else in terms of appointing the top chief executive, the chief finance officer. Those are the people who make the decisions on the airline. So everything that we see now coming out of that actually comes out of what kind of the decisions have you been making. If I might,
so the government of Kenya does not really have a hand in the decisions?
The government comes in on the second order.
Okay.
So you find that, yes, the government is the one that's negotiating the deals for Kenya Airways. For instance, if Kenya Airways has to fly out of most of the countries, it's the government that actually negotiates those. It's the government that decides who is going to fly in here to protect the interests of Kenya Airways. So that is really like, it's not just a private company, it's really a national asset, a national security issue, and a national pride, and that's probably why every Kenyan is really interested in that. But now you find the person who actually holds the voting power, the person who really makes the important decisions, is actually KLM and not the government. So if you find the management that comes in, at first they have to report in terms of their interests and their allegiance. They have to see what does KLM have to do. And if you have to appreciate what really is happening, is that you look at the decision that the management has been making. For instance, you find, 5 years ago, the management was kind of coerced to buy 2 aircraft from KLM. And you find that they bought the aircraft at about, 2 billion Kenya shillings, and then now they've been forced to sell off this airline, these aircraft at about 100 million each. So, 2 Range Rovers for an aircraft kind of thing. So you find yourself in a situation whereby you cannot just sustain at the airline. You find how they have been purchasing fuel. Most African airlines, what they do is that they have come up with an association so that they can be able to buy fuel in bulk. So this gives them the economies of scale in that they can buy cheaply, they can be able to negotiate with the suppliers. But Kenya Airways is saying, no, we can buy it on our own. How do they survive with this? They make a 3.2 billion loss just from buying expensive fuel. Now is the time when you want to make all the money and save as much as possible.
Right.
And you're making this kind of decisions.
I mean, Paul, the issues that you're talking about, I mean, and you know, the position and the part that KLM plays in this, would you call them a bully shareholder? Because it seems that, you know, they really are after their own interests.
I mean, they have very soft power. How you look at it is that soft power, they kind of, you know, sit out and then you will not hear them anywhere. They will not be calling a press conference. They are quiet, but they make the important decisions.
Okay.
So if you appoint the chief executive, you are the person to appoint the chief finance officer, and you decide if they are fired or they stay. So it doesn't matter. Those are the people that actually sign off the deals. If they are going to open a bank account, those are the important people.
Okay.
So once you have those people on your side, it doesn't matter what everybody else says. So yes, they may not look really the big bullies with a big stick, but yes, they're the guys who are running the airline technically. I mean, you look at the ticketing, for instance, mess at Kenya Airways. Sometimes even told that the ticketing function is even at some point was being handled by KLM. So it does almost everything. I mean, their maintenance of aircraft is being done by KLM. So KLM may not be making money directly from Kenya Airways in terms of the profits, but they do the other services so that Kenya Airways ends up paying KLM for other services like maintenance and other things. So
So I mean, from that I get that you know, KLM is sort of like using Kenya Airways to still remain stable because there are also problems at KLM. They're not making maybe as much profit as they used to.
Exactly.
Is that the right way to look at it?
You might look at it from that side because you find KLM right now is really also having a few problems financially. It has been making losses and it's not really a very solid company in terms of profit. So if you looked at shareholders putting money into the airline, KLM will not be one of those people that will be very much willing because it doesn't have even the amount of money that may be required. So that's why you find the government actually playing a bigger role of looking money for Kenya Airways. And then you find that it's decided to look for other alternatives to be able to get this money. Then what it's doing right now is renegotiating banks. So it goes to whatever bank X and tells them, hey guys, we cannot be able to pay this time. Allow us some 2 more years to be able to organize ourselves and be able to pay.
All right.
But right now, I think the biggest headache that they have to deal with is the pilots and the depletion of staff. You find the high quality staff like engineers actually leaving the airline because of the turbulence. Exactly. They're going to the Middle East carriers and so on and so forth.
All right. So now what is the main reason? I mean, there are very many issues, but right now, what is the main issue behind this strike that looms?
Pilots, on the face of it, you find that they think that they are doing service to the airline in terms of saying that, look, guys, we've allowed this management that they are messing up the airline. So on one hand, they are looking and saying, look, we want good management of the airline so that we can also protect our jobs. That is a good thing because they are saying if we don't speak up, then we leave this decision to continue, then we will be out of jobs. Rightly so. But pilots don't have really that locus standi to be able to change management, so to speak, because that is really a shareholder's mandate.
So they want the management change. That is the bottom line of this strike.
That's the bottom line. They want people out, but they do not have the mandate to do that because if that happened, then it will set a bad precedent in the market that employees will just wake up one day and decide, oh, we do not want the CEO and so on and so forth. So it can't be allowed in a corporate environment. But rightly so, because of the interests there, somebody has to speak up, and who else better than the pilots?
All right. But really, is the management, if we are able to sort out the management, because I mean, even when, you know, Ngunza came, everybody thought that, you know, he would be the silver bullet to this problem. But is it really a question of management, or is it like decisions that have been made in the past, like you mentioned, the issue to do with fuel buying, that are, you know, are now coming up, and, you know, it's now like a blockbuster problem.
You know, even as you fly the airline, yes, you might be the pilot, you know, very competent pilot, right there. Nguza is there on the cabin doing what he has to do. But you find the cabin crew are dissatisfied. You find the airline is not just moving, doesn't have enough fuel, it doesn't have, the seats are empty. So what Mbuve is doing is really like 10% of what should be happening. So he doesn't have the goodwill, the support that it has at the board level, at employee level. And I think he may not just be the right person at this point in time. Probably the airline needs somebody who has a lot more confidence that people can look at and say, okay, we are going the right direction. Already the chairman has said he may not be staying. And I think sometimes you look at it and say, okay, the boat is still rocking. And it's good for me to stay out and let someone else deal with it. Because what the argument has been that he's also part of the previous regime.
Okay.
That is one problem, is that he was there when the former chief executive was there, and some of these decisions were made. So he may not be the right person to clean up. Secondly, you find that he's also really affiliated to KLM. So that is also another challenge that people are saying, look, he may also be holding brief for KLM. So probably need somebody else, a turnaround CEO who understands aviation for 2-3 years. He sorts out the issues at Kenya Airways and then hands it over to somebody else.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about also the issues, the monies that are being held in different countries, that belong to, essentially Kenya Airways, the Forex Bureau issue. If you can just explain that to us, how much is it affecting, profit making at Kenya Airways?
So basically, you find Kenya Airways, of course, what we call the reporting currency is where the headquarter is. So the reporting currency should be the Kenya shillings here in Nairobi. But you find that it operates in different markets. For instance, in the region, you have Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Somalia.
Yes.
But South Sudan and Ethiopia are really important. So you find the airline has sold tickets to whatever people have bought tickets, have bought them in the currency of South Sudan or in Ethiopian currency. But now translating that into the Kenya shillings or bringing it back home has become a problem. Like there's over 5 billion that is stuck between the two countries, and you see
between South Sudan and Kenya.
And yes,
okay.
that the money cannot just get out. You see, South Sudan has had a problem of currency. There's limitations of dollars, so they can't like give out all the dollars.
So these are agents who have money that belongs to Kenya.
Yes, they have money that And then now, what is interesting, if you look at the reports that have been out there that have been done by Deloitte, for instance, you find that Kenya is dealing with individuals. They're not dealing really with like sometimes a credible company that you are safe. So if an individual, somebody decides not to pay, there's nothing you can do. So I don't know why they made those kind of decisions. So they have money. Yes, they have sold people. They have offered services. People have flown already, but they can't get the money out.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about this meeting that is set to happen with the CS. Is it just another meeting to show the public and Kenyans that something is happening, or are we actually expecting some sort of results from it?
I think this meeting today will be very important for the future of the airline in terms of what happens in the next 1 week or so, because I think the main issues here will be to be able to arrest the employee and rest that is there right now, because it's not just the pilots. The cabin crew and other employees have also been on a go-slow and have been bringing some kind of questions, because remember the airline kind of, to save costs, they hired employees through a different company.
Yes.
Some of them are working Kenya Airways employees, but through like subcontracted. So they are also coming up and saying this is, a small problem for us. We want contracts and permanent pensionable contracts with Kenya Airways. And Kenya Airways right now is not in a position even to absorb any new employees because it plans to sack about 600 or so. So
more.
Yeah, or more. Yeah. So what is happening is that if they can sit together and bring pilots on board, bring the management on board, and try and see how do we get out of this, probably just encourage the management who must leave to leave before it's too late.
Right.
And also let the pilots, step back, because you see all this pushing and pulling is not helping, because if really pilots are really interested in the welfare of the airline, they also look at it in terms of the impact of cancellation and the customer satisfaction, because once you have been stuck in an airport, for instance, in the UK for 2-3 hours because of Kenya Airways, you will not want to fly on it again. Yeah.
That's true. Thank you so much, Paul Wafula. Let's wait and see what comes out of this meeting. Of course, Paul Wafula is a senior reporter here at the Standard newspaper, of course, and he's been following up on the issues to do with Kenya Airways for quite some time. All right, so that is our top